Welcome. You're watching Rugby with Rifle, a podcast about all things rugby and life, with your host, Danny Pabone and Rifle Scudder.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Rugby with Rifle, a podcast that's all about the game of rugby and also bringing the game of rugby to the American audience and beyond. So, as always, I'm here with my friend Rifle. How are you doing, sir?
Doing very well. Thank you, Danny. A little bit cooler than it was last time we did a podcast, but doing very well, thanks.
Yes, so here in Jersey, we're getting some much needed rain. So even though it's raining, it's much needed. So
Good.
and it's not as cold. So today is actually 52, which is pretty
Okay,
good,
that's not bad.
as opposed to the 20s we've had in the past few days.
Week, yeah,
I'll take it
sure.
any day. So welcome everybody. And in this episode, we're going to go over a series of international rugby games that took place over the month of November. And this series, test matches, as they refer to it, correct, Rifle?
Correct, yeah.
So these test matches were known as some people refer to it Autumn Nation Series. I think it was called also Autumn International Play. So depending on which website you go to, it'll be named different things. But I've learned it as the Autumn Nation Series, so we'll stick to that.
That's good enough, yeah. As long as you need to know that the biggest countries, you've got Northern Hemisphere versus Southern Hemisphere, and they play it all in the Northern Hemisphere in Europe. That's all you got to know about the name and just enjoy the wonderful games that they provided.
Yes, it was. And one of those games I watched at Rifle's house. No, I was about to say Australia. It wasn't Australia. It was South Africa versus Wales. And it was in the game or the match took place in Wales. And you will see in episode 10, even though South Africa pretty much, in my words, beat down Wales. For some reason, Rifle still wasn't happy, but you have to watch that episode to find out why. But that was an amazing game. So Rifle, this Autumn Nation series is part of a group of other, I guess, it's a part of a group of, it's not part of a group of tournaments, but it's a part of the yearly schedule for the international rugby teams, because you have, as we have spoken about before, you have the Six Nations tournament, which usually occurs in February and March of every year.
Yeah, this year we're blessed because the first game is the last weekend of January already. So
there you go. So it comes a little earlier.
Nation, so yeah.
So you have it comes Christmas comes a little earlier, just in January.
Valentine's Day comes early this year, next year.
Yes, and then you have the Rugby Championship, where usually occurs in the months of July, August, and September.
Yeah, summertime, America's summer, yeah.
Yes. And then you have the Autumn Nation Series, which also occurs every year, and that occurs again, we just mentioned, during the month of November. And then you have the Rugby World Cup, which occurs every 4 years, next one being 2027. And then you also have the British and
Irish
Lions tours, which is also every 4 years, and that's the year after the Rugby World Cup.
And the next one is in Australia. Next year in Australia, the British and Irish Lions will come. And that's what makes especially in the year that the British and Irish Lions go on tour, that's what makes that year's Six Nations so important.
Mm.
because they pick the players. You know, the English teams, the Welsh, the Irish, and the Scottish from the Six Nations, how they perform. They pick the best players. Normally, they come from that Six Nations tournament. The players that did the best there, they go on tour. So that's going to be very exciting.
Oh, so that throws another wrench into the
Yes,
loop as
yes.
well.
Yeah,
I didn't
so
even think about
that
that.
part will be even more exciting this year, because just not after that, but a couple of months after that, there's a tour for those 4 teams, and they're going to have to pick the best players to go to Australia to represent the British and Irish Lions. So yes, definitely another thing to be looking at during that contest.
Wow. Okay. I didn't even think about that. But yes, that's true. So you have the Six Nations um and then the British Alliance tour a couple of months after that. So it's gonna
Correct.
be a year full of rugby. I'm
Yeah,
sure you're excited about that.
very much so. Yeah, of course.
So, in this episode, we just wanted to briefly just run through all the matches that were played in the month of November, and in this schedule that we're going to see here in a second, and again, this is just a little uh, introduction into what the Autumn Nation series again. Some websites refer to it as Autumn Internationals. So again, it's just a group of test matches. Uh, and you had said, Rifle, again, please remind me, the Northern Hemisphere were the hosts this year, correct?
Correct. Yeah, every time they play it they're the hosts.
Okay. So the Northern Hemisphere is, they're always the hosts.
They're hosting. That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Cool. Cool. So with that, let me just switch here and please forgive me. There we go. So these are the games that were played, and just to give a little to clarify here, these are not all the games that were played throughout the month of November. These were games that they show here that were played amongst the, you know, top ranked teams. Um, so these are not all the games that were played. And again, I was able to watch the South Africa Wales match that occurred on Saturday, the 23rd of November. And as you can see here, South Africa won 45-12. But they did not score more than the Australians when the Australians beat the Wales.
Correct. That was my hope for the game, because Australia scored 50. Uh, so I wanted South Africa to get more than 50. Now Wales scored more points against Australia, so that, to my defense, that would balance it out. But I was hoping we could get 50. But on the day, Wales, man, they even scored the last try. They scored just before halftime, and then they stuck in there, they hung in there the whole game, and they scored the last try of the game just before the final whistle went. So one would look at the score and think, Wales didn't even pitch up, but it was a hard game as always. Wales is a very, very tough team. They're hard as nails, and they didn't go away. They tackled, they scrum. They did what they could. They're in a building phase right now. So they're having a lot of issues. There's a lot of talk around their coach, Warren Gatland. Should he be the coach? Should he not? Is it his fault? But there's so many things that they are currently dealing with. So on the day, even though it was 45-12, Wales still did well. They played their hearts out. And that's nice to see. You don't want someone to just, because South Africa scored within the first, I think, maybe 8 minutes. They had 2 tries. And one will think, they're just going to give up, but they didn't. They stuck it out and they did what they could. So hats off to Wales for just sticking it as hard as they could back to South Africa. So it was a good day at the end.
So yeah, that guys over the past 2 or 3 minutes is Rifle being diplomatic. I won't be so I won't be so diplomatic. It was a beatdown. But to be fair, you could see throughout the game that the Wales was really tackling hard and just didn't give up. It is true what you say. It's just South Africa was a better team and a more uh, well-rounded team, I would say. They
Yeah,
have a lot of depth.
we are we are definitely in a purple patch right now. South Africa, the Springboks, our coach Rassie Erasmus has done so well. I just want to, on that day, I can recall now after the game, we made a couple of comments, and I mistakenly on the day, because I was watching Australia, because Australia, just like Wales, they've been battling. But their coach Joe Smith, he's very good, and he's picked the team up a lot. They've been doing well, and up until that stage, they won all their games. And I said that day that Australia won all their games, but I hadn't watched Australia played Scotland on that day, the same day. They played in the morning, but we were busy in the morning, so I couldn't see the game. But they actually lost to Scotland. So when I said Australia hasn't lost any of their games, because if you look at the whole tournament, they're just two teams that didn't lose a game. So they went 4-0. It was South Africa, was one of them, and then France was the other team. So out of all, I mean, you got brilliant teams. You got the All Blacks. I mean, they're always just great. And then you've got Ireland as well. So you got teams there. You got England that played. So there's some good rugby nations there. But out of all of them, South Africa and France were the only teams that did not lose. So Australia, even though I said hadn't lost the game, they lost that morning earlier to Scotland. And then me saying they didn't lose a game, I probably jinxed them, because the next week they lost, I think, against Ireland.
They lost the next two games.
Yeah, so they lost 2 games from the day that I said they hadn't lost the game. So I opened my big mouth too quick. Sorry, Australia.
Yeah,
but they're doing well. People were very, very worried about the British and Irish Lions tour, because Australia were battling. They were not doing well at all. And it's such a big thing in the world of rugby, the British and Irish Lions tour. And you don't want that powerhouse from the north to come to a southern team and just absolutely demolish them. And a lot of people, myself included, were thinking, oh my goodness, this is not looking good. But Australia have picked themselves up. They're improving all the time. So it looks much better. It looks like it's going to be a good contest maybe next year when they do come.
Yeah, so they're slowly coming back.
They are.
As a powerhouse.
Definitely turning the tide for Australia, so that's great.
And for Australia fans, please do not show up at Rifle's house. We didn't mean to jinx you guys. Please.
I'll put my Australian jersey on for you guys. I'll prove that I love you.
Yeah. That's funny. So yeah, and I don't know if it pertains to this set of games, but there was a term that you use in the rugby world, that if a team that wins all their games, was it the wooden spoon, or is that another?
If you lose all your games,
that's a wooden spoon.
That's a wooden spoon. So in the Six Nations, they talk about the team that will get the wooden spoon. If there's a team that did not win one, you play every nation, and then you just did not win one. And on the flip side of that, you have the Grand Slam if you didn't lose a game.
Okay.
So if you won everything, it would be a Grand Slam. And then if you lose everything, you get the wooden spoon.
Okay. And that pertains to any set of games or tournament, or is that specific for Six Nations and Rugby Championship?
I don't know. I think that's an English saying. I don't know.
It's English. Okay.
If it's British English, yeah, but we talk about the wooden spoon when you lose everything, and then the Grand Slam if you win everything. So I don't know if it's just for the Six Nations, but we use that as well. So I don't actually know where that comes from, to be honest.
Okay, maybe that's a future episode.
There we go. English language in rugby.
There you go. So yeah, so that was pretty cool. So South Africa and France were the only two teams to win um, all their games in this year's Autumn Nation Series.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool and um, interesting because oh no, I'm mistaken. This past Rugby World Cup's finals was played by New Zealand and South Africa.
Yeah.
South Africa played France in the semifinals, correct?
No, we played England in the semi-finals. We played France in the quarterfinals.
Quarterfinals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I know they played France
France
at
was
some point.
quarterfinals, yeah.
Quarterfinals. Okay.
In France, very, very. I mean, all the games are difficult, and
Yeah.
and maybe this is another thing as well, and this is something that I battle with, because it's just me that you're asking questions, and I only have my opinion, and my opinion many, many times is wrong. It's what I see and how I grew up. And so I remember, I don't know, maybe two podcasts ago, was talking about Ireland. Oh, that's it. When we were talking about the haka, when Ireland played against New Zealand, and I was saying, that this game has been brewing a long time because of the World Cup and what happened there. And I said, I remember, because I went to listen to the podcast when it came out, so I listened to everything again. And I said, Ireland cruised through the pool stages and they got to the quarterfinals, which is so far from the truth. I mean, they didn't cruise at all. At that stage, I was thinking to myself, I was just wanting them to get to the game where they did the haka and all of that, talking about that. But Ireland was also in the pool of death with South Africa. So they didn't cruise. I mean, they had to play South Africa, they had to play Scotland. So they had a very difficult pool section as well. And that's what I say, if there were other people, someone could have stopped me and said, oh, no, they didn't cruise through. I mean, they had to play South Africa, they had to play Scotland. But when I listened to it just by myself and I watched the podcast and I said that, I was like, I got to correct that, because they didn't cruise through it, but I was trying to get to the haka and talk about that. So this was very interesting, the autumn series, because you wanted to see, teams like New Zealand. A lot of eyes were, as I said, on Australia. How bad are they going to do? And they didn't do badly at all. They improved so much. Their coach has really got them going, and they're on the up. England lost a lot of games, but very, very close. So a lot of people are talking about, their coach, his record is not too good. And what are people going to expect? They can do very, very well next year in the Six Nations. They didn't lose by far. They lost, just lost to New Zealand. So, and then obviously Ireland as well, because they were brilliant last year. A lot of people thought that they could win the World Cup, but they didn't. That Irish curse struck them again in the quarterfinals. So it was a very, very interesting autumn's nations to see how the teams did. But as usual, France, man, they were good. France played New Zealand. I don't know if you saw that game when they did the haka. They turned all the lights off in the stadium. And people had their phones, so it looked like a rock concert with people with their lighters. And they focused just on Australia when they did the haka. That was amazing. It was so nice to see. So yeah, there's so many things one can talk about. I mean, we want to keep the podcast not too long, but there were so many good things to look at. And the saddest thing for me was the state of Welsh rugby, because Wales were back in the day the best team. I mean, they've produced players, the best try ever scored, if you go onto YouTube, is scored by a Welsh player when they played Barbarians. So that was very sad, is to see how Wales are battling right now. But Australia, they were battling a while ago. They're coming up, like I said, South Africa now, we must enjoy this good era that we are in, because it doesn't last forever. It's just like life. You got your ups, you got your downs. Everything has a season. There's a time and a place for everything. And some teams just at this stage are not doing well, while other teams are. So while you're on top and you're riding that wave, which was New Zealand and the All Blacks, for almost my whole life growing up, was just the All Blacks were just amazing. They were just a team. If you got on the field and you played the All Blacks, man, you were just scared. They put so much fear on the rugby field, and South Africa has taken that position now. So I'm really enjoying it while I can. But for the game of rugby, it's good to have teams that go up and down, just like it is in life. It's the difficult and the hard parts that make the nice parts of life even so much more enjoyable. How would you know what a good part of your life is if you haven't been through a bad part? So in rugby, just like in life, it's the same. You got your ups and downs, good seasons and bad seasons. But it was a very interesting autumn nations to see the teams and people that were looking at which players are good, new players coming through. And then, as I say, the next thing is going to be the Six Nations to see what team are they going to pick to go and face Australia in Australia. So very, very interesting times in the world of rugby that we're living in, which is nice.
Yes, it is. And it's true what you say. Life has its ups and downs. And sometimes as humans, um, we want to bypass the bumps and obstacles in life, but sometimes I just think about it. Can you imagine if everything was perfect, how boring life would be?
Yeah, one doesn't think so when things are bad, but you
Yeah.
grow the most when things are difficult. You learn a lot when things are bad, and you recover. So they're not fun times, but each and every single person goes through them. No one is immune to that. So that makes us all on equal playing field, so to speak, which is good.
Yep. Money does not take problems away. Even you could have all the money and all the health in the world, and one way or another, life is going to throw a curveball at you. So it's just it's that famous saying, the only two things certain in life is death and taxes.
Death and taxes, yeah.
Yes. I would add death, taxes, and obstacles in life. There's three things that are guaranteed in life. So
Definitely.
yeah. But I'm with you. I'm sure you've watched so many rugby games and tournaments throughout your life, and a lot of times games and years mix into each other, so you misspeak about a certain year or a certain team. So it happens. I think a couple. I don't remember what episode I was talking about. You know, uh, when the Giants won, and you were talking about in 1995 when South Africa won their first Rugby World Cup, and you had the cops called on them, on you guys, and thankfully they were gracious and forgiving and didn't haul you away to jail.
Yes.
I remember also mentioning that year that of the Giants winning the Super Bowl and nobody gave them a chance, and saying that the Giants met or played New England in the regular season, and I said they were got a beat down. I wasn't correct. I misspoke on that part too. They did play them, but the Patriots ended up winning by a field goal, 3 points. So it was actually a close game.
It was a close game then.
Yeah, it was a close game, but New England was undefeated in the regular season. So that's why nobody was giving the Giants any chance of winning, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl that year, which shocked a lot of people.
Yeah.
So yeah. Was there any other games or situations that you found interesting in this year's Autumn Nations?
No, looking at new players coming through, as I say, because that's the thing as well, when older players or guys that are more experienced and get to the end of their career, kind of a coach has a difficult choice to when to bring in new players and so on. And there were quite a couple of new players, so that They do it every year. They have the team of the year. They have the coach of the year. Maybe I can mention that now that you're talking about it. And then they also have another a group for the best new coming player. So up and coming player. So Satiti, who won that for New Zealand, he's an up and coming player. He was brilliant. So I don't think that there was any questions about who would win that. So he won that, and he's going to be an absolute dominant force in world rugby to come. He's such a good player and such, youngster, new, and just the breakaway player of the year. Congratulations to him. And then for the player of the year, they had one from Ireland and 3 from South Africa. And then Pieter Stef de Toy, he won player of the year. And then they had coach of the year, which a lot of people have spoken about, and a lot was said about it because a lot of people were thinking that Rassie would win it because of what the Springboks have accomplished. And they gave coach of the year to the French coach for the 7-a-side team, not even the 15-man game that we are talking about here. So the whole thing about that was because Anton Dupont, who's their captain, he when they lost to South Africa in the quarterfinals last year, he said he's not going to play 15-man format anymore. He's going to go to 7-a-side, and he wants to play in the Olympics, and he wants to win a golden medal at the Olympics. And he did it. France won. In any case, they gave the best coach of the year to this French coach who coached the 7-a-side team. So, people literally had to go and Google his name and find out where he's from and what he's done. No one's heard of him. No one knows who he is. And people are saying it's unfair because you can't compare 15-man format to 7-a-side format. And how do you compare a coach that's done practically nothing that no one's heard of to coaches that are coaching 15-a-side, the format that we're talking about here? So that was an interesting thing about, because it all happened during, the nation autumn tournament. So it was, coach of the year did not go to Rassie Erasmus, which a lot of people thought. But, some of these things happen. Things happen in life that you got no control over, and you just got to go with the punches. So that was another interesting thing, yeah. So
you gotta love the politics of sports.
Exactly.
Love it.
Yeah, there you go. So, but no, it was all good. So there were some really, really good games, and there's some good players. Didn't see a lot of red cards. I mean, rugby red cards, for hurting someone is very, very few and far in between. There's really so much respect and honor for one another. And, on the field, you go out with everything you have, but it's very, very seldom that you actually see people being malicious on the rugby field towards another player. So once again, there wasn't, that I can recall now, just watching all the games, that there was any of that. So it was a nice tournament to watch. Good rugby, good players. So yeah, rugby's looking good at this stage, which is nice.
Pretty cool. So that's at the international level. Again, we're working hard here to really bring it to the American audience. Because once again, the Rugby World Cup will be here, or it's planned. So far, it's planned to be here in America in 2031. So 2031. Definitely looking forward to that. And we have 6 years.
We have.
To try to bring this game to as many people as possible.
Check up on the rules and do all of that. But that's so exciting if that really happens and they do have it. Yeah, it's going to be wonderful. Very excited about that.
Yes, it will. I'm excited about it. Learning about the sport and having such a big event such as the Rugby World Cup being hosted here in America again. So far, and I hope it stays that way.
Yeah.
So
bigger than that.
Yes, yeah, there is it. So with that, everyone, we're going to end this episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode about just going through the 2024 Autumn Nation Series. And the next tournament coming up is the Six Nations, so that should be exciting to talk about and everything. So once again, Rifle, thank you, my friend, for taking this time and educating me in the game of rugby.
Oh, very welcome. Love it. Enjoy it. Glad people are watching and learning more about the game.
Yes, yes, pretty cool. So with that, everybody, thank you for watching, and until next time.
Cheers, everyone. Stay well.
Okay, take care, everybody. Thank you for watching this episode of Rugby with Rifle. Remember to press the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet to support this podcast.